Entrepreneurially Thinking is a presentation of BioSTL and CET, Center for Emerging Technologies, with RareGem Productions, changing the way you view new ventures, including you on the pathway to success with your business in the St. Louis marketplace and beyond. Here's your hosts, Cheryl and Christy. Now let's get thinking entrepreneurially.
Welcome back to the Entrepreneurially Thinking podcast. Our goal is to activate your entrepreneurial mindset and create pathways for business success in the St. Louis marketplace and beyond. I'm Christy-Maxfield.
And I'm Dr. Cheryl-Watkins-Moore, the lead on our Bioscience Inclusion Initiative with BioSTL.
How are you?
I am good. I am excited today.
I know. We're always, it's always energizing to record.
Yes.
And so my Tuesdays are this strange mix of activities with a smattering of inspiration from our recording. So I concur.
Yeah.
And what's always inspiring is to know that there's folks listening.
Yeah.
And sharing our podcasts out there, and that we have the support of our founding sponsors, BioSTL and CET, whose renewed support makes this podcast possible. So please share it out. If you think you'd like to be a sponsor, give us a shout. We'd love to have you. And find us wherever you find your favorite podcasts: iTunes, Spreaker, Facebook, LinkedIn. Entrepreneur Gary Vaynerchuk says future is voice. So shout it out.
Shout it out. Shout it out. Well, if the idea of a unicorn is that it is rare as well as legendary, then the reference is applicable to tech companies that are founded by Black and Latina women. Tech's real unicorns, Black and Latina Tech's real unicorns, Black and Latina female entrepreneurs, are the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs in the U.S., yet they aren't getting the financial backing they need. Surprisingly.
You're surprised.
When we come back, we'll be speaking with an innovator who founded a company that offers career support and training to women of color with the mission to make things a little bit easier. The founder of DigitalUndivided is with us today. And even she was told she had no chance of raising money for her startup as a Black woman. Well, you know what? She showed them. So Kathryn Finney joins us after the break. We are looking forward to this discussion, so stay listening.
BioSTL is a proud founding sponsor of this Entrepreneurially Thinking podcast, and we want you to know all about the great things they are up to. BioSTL fosters collaborative efforts to advance innovation and entrepreneurship that builds on St. Louis's world-class medical and plant biosciences. Their global STL initiative aims to build a direct link between St. Louis and other countries by recruiting high-growth international companies to establish a United States presence in St. Louis. You can learn more about BioSTL and the Global STL Initiative by visiting biostl.org. And for your renewed and continuing support, BioSTL, we say thank you.
My name is Kathryn Finney. I'm the managing director and founder of DigitalUndivided. And thinking entrepreneurial to me means thinking big.
So, Kathryn, we are thrilled to have you. I would love to start at the beginning, so to speak.
Yes.
And I was hoping we could start off our conversation by talking about how growing up in Milwaukee, your dad, who was a senior systems engineer at Microsoft, introduced you to technology. And I was wondering, what did that look like to be introduced to technology at that age?
You know, I actually kind of grew up in technology with my dad. My dad originally was a brewery worker at Schlitz Brewery in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And so, you know, most people know Milwaukee from the brewery. And in the early 80s, the breweries all shut down, and it devastated the community. And it's not really until about now, almost 30, close to 40 years later, that the communities actually have started to come back. But it really devastated the community. But my father had this vision of himself that was larger than, perhaps a, middle-aged Black man who, just got his GED was perhaps allowed to think in the 80s, but even in now. And so he took a course at a local workforce development center. in C++, which is one of the foundational computer languages, and fell in love.
Wow.
And really found that he had this aptitude, and then took an internship at IBM at 36, an unpaid internship, while also unpacking boxes on the third shift from trucks.
Wow.
And from there, got an entry-level position at Digital Equipment, and old sort of computer heads with no deck. I was one of the early personal computing companies, and rose through the ranks and got a job at Microsoft where he was an engineer. And when he passed away, he was executive at EMC, which is this large data storage company that was just bought by Dell. So being a child through this process and seeing the impacts and the power of technology of just changing my dad's life, of my family's life, my entire community's life, was really impactful to me. You would think that I would have went right into tech, which is not what I did.
And I actually lived parallel lives in New Jersey. So I'm originally from New Jersey. I went to Montclair State and graduated in 97. And I was doing poli-sci and women's studies while you were doing poli-sci and women's studies over at Rutgers.
Wow.
Yeah.
Not to date us both. Sorry about that. But
Wow. That's okay. It was a good time.
it was good times. I feel like I must have been drinking the right water or whatever, hanging out at the right well, because some of the coolest people I know were doing that in Jersey at that time. So I was excited to find that out.
It was really great. Had a great time at Rutgers, and spent a lot of time at the Center for the American Woman in Politics, which is where I pretty much lived at the Eagleton Institute while in undergrad, and worked there through my whole entire time of being at Rutgers. And
what made you
it was really amazing to work with such incredible women, because it was all women-led and women-run, and even Eagleton, which wasn't necessarily just the Center for American Women in Politics, but the sort of big, political think tank was led by a woman, Ruth Mandel.
Yes.
And so it was really amazing to have folks like Ruth and Debbie and other folks as my mentors. It was really impactful for me.
What drew you to focusing on women's studies?
Well, I think it was, I was always in politics, so I was always in student government.
Okay.
I was the president of my class and sort of all that stuff, and thought I was going to go into politics until I interned in D.C.
Oh God, girl, we really did live parallel lives.
Yeah,
I interned for a campaign in New Jersey, so I didn't make it all the way to D.C. But
Wow.
I thought I was going to do the same thing until.
And so I interned with Paul Wellstone, who was a senator, and also at the White House. And this was towards the ending of the Clinton administration, right before Monica.
Yeah.
So it was a really interesting time, but all these things were happening, and I just remember being there and seeing Senator Wellstone, who was an incredible man, who was probably the most liberal senator ever, was really struggling with sort of what was going on with welfare reform at that time. A lot of things going on that was sort of the hot button issue at that moment. And, just being there and seeing people kind of do things that they knew morally wasn't right. And just seeing how messy politics was, seeing how incredibly homogeneous it was. It was all white men.
Oh, yeah.
And Carol Moseley Braun, who's,
right,
the only black woman since then and since Camilla. It was incredible to be in that sort of space. I remember I worked in the Senate Hart building, which was the newer building, and it probably had 30 senators had offices in there. And I was maybe one of 3 black women.
I was just about to ask you, how many people of color and how many women were in?
None.
Wow.
And I was also really, this is a total digression, I was also in the height of my cuteness, so you can imagine I always had a lunch date, always had a dinner date. It was bad, but there was also some good parts to it as well.
Understood.
There was no one, and just stood out, but it was really difficult being there and seeing the challenges of politics and how things got done, and
the lifestyle.
Really
it's a grinding lifestyle, too.
And I think you have to have the stomach to be in politics. I mean, if that's not your thing, and it doesn't seem like that's your thing, you or Christy, I mean, you've got to be really down and dirty in some aspects.
You do, and it was the disconnect between the public persona of people and who they actually were. It's really interesting. Like, one of the nicest people to me was actually the senator from New York. His name was Alphonse D'Amato. He was a Republican. And he would always, speak to me. I would see him in the morning because I never ate breakfast. And he would always comment on what I was eating. It was really nice. And like a couple of times he bought me breakfast. And it was just such a disconnect at what his public persona was. It was just a very interesting time period. And it wasn't, I saw how difficult it would be to do what's right. You would constantly be fighting on doing what's right. And then also could see how things were starting to head, and this was 20 years ago, but could definitely see how things were starting to head towards where we're at now.
So you could see that 20 years ago?
You could see it. You could see it. Really, most of the people I talked to who have been in D.C. for long periods of time really say a lot of the challenges that we see now at the level that we're seeing it really started during the Clinton administration. That's when it really, really just started, this sort of high partisanship, this sort of inability to find common ground, heavily influenced by media. And, scandal selling. And so, and people using media in ways that are not necessarily good for any of us. And so you could start to see a lot of that. It was also the beginning of the internet, too, around that time. So it was a lot of things that were starting to happen that would, forever change our political landscape.
Wow. Well, and you made the point earlier, like with your upbringing, everybody would have thought, hey, I'm going to go right into technology. And now you've touched sort of on the role that media plays. Where you found yourself was sort of at the intersection of all of those things eventually, though, right?
Yeah, I went to Yale for graduate school to become an epidemiologist, which was heavily influenced by when I was at Rutgers. I went abroad and studied in Ghana, West Africa. I actually had a fellowship and became really ill while I was in Ghana. I had contracted malaria. And that whole experience had a major impact on my life. It continues to have an impact on just the way I think of health and accessibility and equality, and came back and really was looking for a way to put sort of the politics side of what I liked and was doing along with the health side of it, and public health was what came out. So I went to Yale, and it was after Yale, I was working as an epidemiologist at an organization in Philadelphia, newly married, totally spending way too much money, was always the most fabulous person in the lab. You do not need to be that fabulous being in the lab. And started a blog. It was actually my husband's idea. He is an engineer, so I told people I essentially married my father. He's an engineer. They're both Tauruses. They both work at Microsoft.
Okay, maybe you did. I think you might have legit married your father.
They're both 6'4". I mean, they both play football. I mean, it was just like I married my father.
I'm glad that worked out for you, though.
You're right. Like, oh my God! Like, I really did do that, didn't I? It became that cliche, but it was his, idea for me to start a blog as a way to sort of document my spending and just sort of my path in a way to do it while also not spending a lot.
I was going to say, this was his little secret way of reining in your spending, right?
It wasn't even a secret. It was like very slow attention. Like, it wasn't.
He's like, once you write it down and see it in black and white, you'll know what I'm saying to you about being more frugal.
Exactly.
right? I mean, anyone who's either an engineer who's been married or a daughter or have any sort of close relationship with an engineer knows that they're just very kind of like matter of fact. There's not a lot of extra words there.
I'm married to one, so I understand as well.
Wow.
Yeah, right. Like, it's just, there's no extra words. Like he understands the economy of words really well.
Oh, not mine. Mine tells you how to build a clock when you ask them what time it is.
Well, no, now that's different.
Okay.
You're asking them something about
That's true.
building something that they know. So I don't ask him questions about building databases or anything because it's just too long.
Got it.
Anything else, it's like an economy of words.
Interesting. I'm going to have to study that phenomenon with my own engineer in his natural environment.
Yes, I don't ask questions about, like, you know, we could get into a whole long thing on how to build a database, connecting SQL servers and PHP and Ruby. Like, don't need to know it.
Right.
Thank you. I got it. Like, give me the top level overview.
Right.
But it was actually really faithful that he asked. You know, he suggested that I do that, and so I started the blog. It was in 2003. This was before anyone knew what blogging was.
Right. It was an online diary for all intents and purposes.
It was an online diary. And in fact, we used this system called Gray Matter, which was started by a gentleman in Houston who created it. It was an early precursor to WordPress. And he created it as a way to write about some of the mental health challenges that he was having in the online diary. And he wanted a better way to manage that content. Because before, it was nearly impossible to manage that content. You had to do a lot. You had to actually use the DOS prompts. I don't know if you guys...
Oh, my God.
I do.
Yes.
The green prompts.
Yes.
You do all of that, right? And so he's like, there's got to be a better way.
Yeah.
And we have this Windows interface now. We have the internet. There has to be a better way to sort of manage content. And so we built this system. And that's what we used at first. And then, you know, progressed to other systems. But it really took off. It was about 6 months into writing it, the Associated Press contacted me. They were doing a series on people who travel to go shopping. And they were doing a series on people who particularly travel to go shopping at sort of outlets and sample sales in New York, and that was me. And so
if you were going to a sample show, I'm not happy because you were probably a size 2. Nobody else can wear samples.
No, not then. Not then. I mean, I was like not where I'm at now, but I was like, you know, maybe an 8 or so.
Yeah.
But what would happen is you would go to some of the sample sales, and the sample sales at that time were starting to have more of a range of sizes because they were seeing how popular they were.
Yes.
And they were becoming almost like outlets. Because this is before everyone had their own outlet store. Right. So they were almost like sort of overstocked too.
Yeah.
Not just samples, but overstock as well. And it was really great, you know, and I got to write about shopping and get paid lots of money to do so. So
was it just you, Kathryn, that was just writing the blog, or did you have other people helping you write?
At the beginning it was. There was no business model when I started. No one... In fact, when I started, Google's AdWords was new, which was like the first real way that you could monetize content. Prior to 2004, most people didn't really look at blogs and online sort of content as at the same level as print and sort of offline. So they didn't really care. And there was very few ways, almost no ways to monetize the content. Which is probably one of the reasons why I didn't grow that big at first, because people couldn't make money off of it. So when I started, the only thing we could do was Google AdWords, and I remember getting really excited because I got a check for like $110.
That's real money.
Like, right? I could actually do something with that.
Right.
But it was like, wow, like you could actually make money off this internet.
I was going to say, did you show your husband, say, hey, look, you know what? Here's this $110 here.
Google AdWords. Like, have you heard of this? Google has a new way that you can make money. And at that time, even Google was relatively new. Google was about 4 years old when we started. So even Google was like trying to figure itself out. It was like a new way of doing search. People were still doing Alta Vista and, you know, all those
Oh my God, yeah.
We were still using discs to get on the internet. We were waiting for our AOL disc to come in the mail.
Exactly.
Awesome.
AOL was still hot.
Oh man.
MySpace.
I do remember that. I thought the only way you got on the internet was with a CD.
And for a while it was, right? Like,
it was.
A little, like, you know, sound and all that.
All that. So we're going to take a quick break and come back. I want to shift the conversation a little bit to what it meant to go from hearing the shh and putting of the modem and using a CD-ROM to get on the internet to what it means for you now to be leading the advancement of women, and particularly women of color in tech.
Awesome.
CET, the Center for Emerging Technologies, is a proud founding sponsor of this entrepreneurially thinking podcast. We want you to know all about the great things they are up to. CET is in the business of entrepreneur development, offering a variety of programming to meet the training and technical needs of early-stage entrepreneurs. These programs include the Square One Ignite and Bootcamp training program, Level Next, technical assistance, workshops, and other educational programming. To learn more about CET, the Center for Emerging Technologies, visit CETSTL.com. And for your renewed and continuing support, CET, we say thank you.
So, Kathryn, we talked about how you got blogging sort of by happenstance and monetizing the blog simply because as you grew into blogging, the internet grew with you, or vice versa.
And that was your first business, right?
Well, my first business was in 4th grade, and it was a lucrative friendship bracelet business.
Oh, of course it was.
Yes.
Very lucrative.
We did pins.
I was a very well paid 4th grader.
Well, clearly you knew your market.
You were an entrepreneur at heart.
And even in graduate school, I used to braid hair at Yale.
Ah.
That's how I made some extra money. People think I'm crazy, but yeah, I braided hair while also being at Yale, and it helped me to have some pocket change.
There you go. There you go.
So, but my first real business I did on my own was the budget fashionista. Prior to that, I had a family business that I started with my mother and my brother, which we owned a series of dry cleaners.
Oh.
And working with family is a whole other experience.
Yeah, we could do a whole show on that. I've been there.
A whole show on that. But started TBS and started to monetize it, and about 2 years into it, I got a book deal.
Yeah.
And it was when I got the book deal from Random House that I really saw that this could be something.
Yeah.
At that time, there was really no woman-led startups. Like, you didn't hear about women-led startups. There wasn't any discussion on that. And so I started the book and was really excited, and the book came out and, did a lot of TV and became a correspondent for the Today Show, talking about budget fashion and other fun stuff. And during that process, about 2 or 3 years after the book came out, started to sort of see women-led startups being created, like Birchbox and LearnVest and other startups like that, and thought, hey, I could do it. And so I entered into one of the early accelerator programs in New York City, and it was the first time in my life that people had absolutely no expectations for me.
Wow.
I was the only person of color. I was the only person with a dark tan. And it was like one of 4 people, one of 4 women in a cohort of about 48.
Wow.
And it was incredibly difficult. I remember one person said to me that he didn't think I could relate to other black women because I had an accountant, which I thought was really interesting.
What? Because you had an accountant?
Yeah, because
that's so rare.
Have accountants.
That's just so rare.
No, I guess.
Oh my gosh!
You use TurboTax. I don't know. But, it was very.
Oh my God!
It really underscored the challenge of being a woman, particularly a woman of color, in this space. And this was in 2009.
And I think when you say you come into an environment where there are no expectations, that's disheartening from the start. Because it's like, yeah, we're going to take you in, but we don't really believe that.
And hell, you went to Yale.
Exactly.
Your world is about expectations.
She was doing friendship bracelets in fourth grade and making money. Really?
I think it was in order to value someone, you have to understand the foundation of valuing human beings in general. And so one of the things that I always do, before I meet anyone, I Google them. Because A, I like to know who I'm talking to.
Right.
And B, I like to find ways that we can commonly connect.
Yeah.
And I was shocked that people didn't think that there was a foundation, there was a way for us to connect enough to want to Google me.
That's striking.
Right? Like, it was, you didn't think, she's the only Black Latinx person with a tan in this room.
Right.
I'd like to know how she got into this room, just out of curiosity,
Right.
because it's just fascinating when everyone else looks the same. And so there wasn't that curiosity about me or where I came from or my idea or anything. And it was really, really fascinating. And the head of the program, who's continued on to be kind of a big person in tech, said to me that he didn't think I was going to raise any money because he did not know of a single Black woman who'd ever raised money before.
Wow.
But I think that goes back to a lot of times you being the only in many situations where, people might take it for granted. Oh, she's only here because she's, almost like it was not almost, you are the token. So there's no expectation that the token is going to be successful because she's just here to fill a space, which is,
But I love that because it's sort of I love being the underdog. I love people underestimating me. It's been my entire life, people underestimating me.
Yep.
And so I love that. I think that's a position of power, actually. And that's the power, one of the powers that I think being a Black woman and Black women we have is that people are constantly underestimating us. People are constantly looking through us. We're invisible to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And as a result, we're able to go and do what we need to do, and nobody knows until it's done. And then they're like, oh, my gosh, Black women are so capable. It's like, you just didn't see me. I was here all along doing everything that was needed to be done.
Right.
But because you completely discounted me, I was able to do it without you even messing with me.
Right.
And I was able to get a lot done.
I got you. Yeah.
And so thank you for that.
Right.
So what's the other power that you have as a Black woman?
She's a superwoman.
I want to know her superpowers.
I think, I wouldn't say it's a superpower. I just think it's being able to recognize that other people's prejudices and issues are not your issues.
I was going to say, it's theirs, right.
It's theirs, and that it's also their weakness. It is their weakness.
Right.
Because it allows you to discount people, it allows you to overlook things. And I think now we're in a time in history where being a woman of color, it used to be people would overlook us and then we didn't have the resources to capitalize on their own ignorance, right? We couldn't turn these markets that were overlooked into business opportunities for ourselves. Now we're in a different position where we actually have resources to turn those overlooked markets, those overlooked opportunities, into key business deals for us, which is amazing. So I'm always like, fine, I don't care if you don't get it. I don't care if you don't get diversity or anything.
Right.
Demographic-wise, you're going to have to care.
I love
10 years.
I love when you were here in St. Louis, and I was sitting in the audience when you were speaking, and a gentleman, a Caucasian gentleman, stood up, and he was basically asking you to rationalize why diversity was important. And I love the fact when you said, I'm not going to even comment on that. I'm not going to take that question because I'm not going to prove to you the importance and the impact that diversity has in real situations, especially when we talk about business. So, I thought that was just so empowering for a lot of people sitting there and listening to what you had to say. And then when you look at what you've done in communities for African American and Latinx, especially women. I think it's amazing. The Big Innovation Center that you manage. Talk to us about that.
I mean, it's been such a labor of love creating the center, and the space really is created with the goal of giving people the permission to think differently. And one of the interesting things that has come out of the space is 4,000 square feet in downtown Atlanta. It was created to really give, Black and Latinx women permission to think differently.
Mm-hmm, sure.
But it also has given other people the permission to think differently.
Yes.
And it's something about when you are yourself,
yes,
you are living in your own truth, you give others the permission to do the same.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've had a number of friends of DID who just happen to be, white guy VCs, traditional Patagonia vests and stuff like that. Everything that you think of. Come to our space and say to us, this is probably one of the best places I've ever been.
Wow.
It's like forcing me to think differently. It doesn't look like any place in tech I've ever been before. And I'm getting these ideas. I am thinking differently. I am thinking of how possibilities can even be different. And, they come in, we have a very large poster of Shirley Chisholm for president.
Oh, wow.
And I love how, every time, usually a white guy is like, who is that?
You got to school him.
and we love it. We love that because then we get to talk about Shirley.
Yes, right.
And who she is and why you should care. Or we have a very large painting of Ciela Cruz, the salsa star.
Yeah.
And people are like, who is that? They don't know who Ciela Cruz is. So we get to have a conversation about her. Or we have a number of art pieces from different artists around the world that we get to have discussions with people about.
Right.
And we love that because it's an education moment. And it helps open their mind, as well as helps bring other people into what it is that we're doing.
So tell us a little bit more about what you are doing, because my understanding is you guys are really focusing on what you've described as technology-enabled companies. What does that mean, and how is that different from just saying tech companies? Because it feels to me like it also is about giving permission to have a wider tent in that arena.
Yeah, well, the three things that Digital Undivided does is research, knowledge, and community. We have our Project-Diane research report and initiative that started in 2015, really because no one had collected any data on women of color in tech entrepreneurship. And
Kathryn, let me stop you there. That is if you haven't read that, you guys need to go on the internet and get it. I mean, it's not stuff that we don't know, but it's captured. And showing this from a statistical standpoint that we are not represented in tech and we're not represented in the VC space. And it's not just we know that. Here are the real numbers to show it. Yeah. Yeah. And it's been really impactful for us in what we do. But I think what has been even more rewarding for us to see the impact it's had outside of Digital Undivided and the larger community. And so we have a new Project-Diane that's coming out actually in 2 months.
Oh, cool.
And we're really, really excited about it. It has new data. We have some additional things that are going to be rolling out in relation to it that are pretty exciting. And then, with our programs knowledge, that's our BIG Incubator. It's a 9-month incubator program for Black and Latinx women founders. And we say tech-enabled because what we found is things that were women-centered were often not considered tech until a man did it. And then it was considered tech.
Right.
So a case in point, we think of bonobos, isn't that right? The pants people. There was a number of women prior to bonobos who had startups that were fashion-related, focused on women, who were told, well, that's not tech. The bonobos comes with, pants, and then all of a sudden it's tech. and seriously, I mean, that's what it was. It was, things like care.com, which is founded by a woman, which was focusing on child care and creating a platform from that. Well, you don't know if that's really tech. And then, folks come with some of, the other types of programs and platforms, and then that becomes tech. And so that's what we saw with women, that anytime a woman did it, it wasn't tech, and then a man would do the same exact thing, and then it was tech. And so that's why we say tech-enabled.
That's awesome.
We also realize that tech has been marketed as being very much for only a certain type of person.
Yeah.
And so when we use tech in our communities, we have found that people have been actually turned off by that and don't see themselves a part of it because tech has been marketed to symbolize, 25-year-old white guy.
Exactly. It's a white guy's game. It's the Zuckerberg.
And a very specific age white guy, too. Because it's like, if you are a 50-year-old white guy, you don't qualify either. Like, it's only for young white men. That was like the... of a certain economic level, too.
Yes.
And so people were not seeing that they were actually a part of this. And we played around a lot with the words. We used tech-enabled, we used innovation economy a lot, because we knew people were innovative. We know, particularly in our communities that we work with, that some of the most innovative people in the world got innovation, saw themselves as innovative, didn't necessarily see themselves as tech, even when they were really doing tech.
Yeah, that's really important. We talk a lot about the language that we use and how it either invites or disinvites people.
Exactly.
And the ability to see yourself in certain roles described with certain words is hugely powerful. Well, remarkably, we are coming to our end of our time together. So one of the things I wanted to ask you before we end is, for those of us who share your commitment to increasing the number of women of color in tech, women and women of color in tech, what have you learned in your work? What should we be doing to make that more of a reality?
Yeah, there's a couple of really interesting things that we've learned. We look at data a lot, and we have a lot of deep discussions internally. We're kind of known for that.
Okay, I'm going to come hang out with you.
You should. I mean, we have the most fascinating discussions.
Okay, awesome.
We had a big discussion yesterday about the Tulsa race war, essentially, that happened in Oklahoma. And so one of the things that we've learned is, particularly with women of color, it is really important to have role models, and role modeling is just really vital. There was a young woman who we met years ago at South by Southwest. She went to Harvard undergrad, went to Harvard Business School, and worked for Bain and Company, and came up to me and said, "Hey, I want to work for a startup. Can you help me?" Someone said that you would know. And I'm like, why aren't you starting something yourself?
Right.
Like, you literally have the pedigree to do that. I mean, who else, right? And she had never thought that she could do it.
Wow.
Because she had never seen a black woman be in the startup world.
If you can't see it, you can't believe it.
Mark Zuckerberg.
She what?
Classmates. They lived in the same dorm.
Oh, my goodness.
But she did not see herself as having that ability. Now she's a venture capitalist. She had a couple of companies and is a major part of our community, and now has become a venture capitalist with the XX Factor, which is an emerging venture fund. But did not see herself until she met someone like me who said, hey, you can do that.
Yeah.
And I think having that role modeling is so incredibly important to show our communities what the possibilities are. The other thing that we found is really, supporting and growing evidence-based programs and programs that are based on outcomes. And this is a tough discussion that, we are trying to figure out how do we help foster this in a meaningful way in our communities. There's a lot of interest in tech, and there's a lot of people who want to do things in this space. But making sure that we're really supporting those who can actually create and maintain that pipeline is going to be really vital.
I agree.
So events are incredibly important for community building, and we participate in a lot of them. We actually only do one event ourselves. Other than that, we partner with other people on all the events that we do.
A lot like us.
Exactly.
We're finding that there's events and a lot of pitch contests and things like that, and not enough programming to help people really build sustainable companies.
Yep.
Sustainable. We're not talking about even to get venture investment.
Yep.
Just sustainable that they can support themselves and their families off of.
Yep.
And so making sure, as funders, as supporters, we're supporting those organizations and those programs that are really doing that sort of the hard work. Our program staff works really hard. That is the hard work. I get to do the fun work. I get to talk to you guys. Like, that's the they do the hard work.
Well, that's what
man.
That's what Christy and I are looking at each other and smiling about, because when we started our work together, it's been almost 4.5 years.
Oh my goodness.
I know. I know. And when we look at the things that we do besides this podcast, it is about programming and training and putting people in front of individuals that are role models. Because if you can't see it, you can't believe it.
Yeah.
And the training that Christy does with our with the Square One program and the Ignite program here really gets our emerging entrepreneurs at least I think a really good head start to understand what are you trying to do, and let's help you do that. So
Yep.
I think what you're doing is so impactful in the Digital Undivided. With our BioSTL inclusion initiative, we took your work, and I think when you were here, we based our strategy off of the work that you're doing. And I'm just going to repeat this, that Digital DID has impacted, this is straight out of your bio, over 2,000 people and helped companies raise over $25 million in investment. That's impactful. That's the to me, the bottom line. Programming is great, but what's the impact that you're making in communities? And you are making a lot of impact.
Because why are we doing this?
Yes.
We're not doing it to really push change.
Yes.
And to create a successful pipeline. And I think that's the point of all our work. And to create an ecosystem too.
Yes.
That's one of the things that, another piece of advice is really looking at the ecosystem and finding out ways to work together.
Yeah. Yep. Yes.
And to share and to talk about successes.
Yes.
It makes me feel amazing. It makes my week, my year to hear that, BioSTL was able to use project-diane.
Absolutely.
Like, that's the point of what we're doing is to help create an ecosystem where we all can and help, particularly in our respective communities too, really build this sort of pipeline. And what is happening in St. Louis under your leadership is just really amazing. It really, really is. And it's just amazing how the linkages and how we're all sort of connecting.
Absolutely.
It makes me really hopeful for the future.
Me too. It's inspiring to be able to spend some time with you and to talk with you, and to feel really connected to the work that you're doing, and to feel like, the things we're wrestling with and trying to become better at here are the right things, so to speak, if there is such a thing.
Well, we think are the right thing. Right?
Well, to get some outside feedback on, in fact, we might be on the right track here, and that we have other folks like you and your team and the other people that you've inspired by your work to lean on and lean in with. So thank you.
Yes, and your connections, Kathryn, are impacting us even further. I was talking to you about bringing Arlen Hamilton here for our vision. She has just agreed. She is going to be our keynote speaker for Vision 2018 in October. So this is all because of connections, just what you talked about, making sure that we are all connected and we're all making impact in certain ways. So thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. I really mean that.
Well, we're going to totally stay in touch, stalk you on social at a minimum, hopefully come down and visit in Atlanta, maybe when you happen to be in town.
Seriously.
Yes.
And otherwise stay connected to the work and hopefully continue to add to and be a vibrant and vital part of all the change that you're trying to create. So thank you so much for making time for us.
And good luck on your travels. Yeah.
Changing the way you view new ventures, igniting your thinking about entrepreneurship, It's entrepreneurially thinking. Get connected and discover more. Visit our website for show notes, resources, information about our guests, upcoming events, and of course, all your favorite episodes. If you have any questions, be sure to leave them for us in the comment sections, and be sure to leave us a 5-star rating on iTunes. The best way to show love is to share. Let everybody know that you're thinking entrepreneurially. So visit our website, entrepreneuriallythinking.com. #ETHINKSTL. Entrepreneurially Thinking is another positive production of RareGem Productions. Thanks for listening.